You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Oh, here we are again with Little Mission Log Engage. I'm John.
And I'm Norm. And it's that day. It's the hump day of the week where we bring you Mission Log Engage.
Yes.
So what do we have for our listeners and our subscribers and our wonderful audience today for
All
hump
right.
day?
Well, today we have an email from Kishan who says, hi, Norman and John. Hi back to you. I'm listening to Mission Log episode 442, Eye of the Needle. So here we are still in early Voyager season 1. Specifically, the conversation around how Starfleet personnel treat non-biological life, e.g. data and the EMH. I am struck by how topical the conversation really is and how important it is to humanity that we sort out where we collectively stand. Leaving aside for the moment the ticklish question of what is life, isn't the relevant question what is a person, and is there such a thing as a non-biological person? Is this a moral question, a religious one, an ethical one, a legal one, all of the above? The United States Supreme Court concluded in the Citizens United ruling that the United States Constitution holds corporations are people and thus entitled to all constitutional protections to which human people are entitled. This has led to a quip about Citizens United that, quote, corporations are people and money is speech. Something about this landmark decision doesn't feel right. It could be argued that you hold something in common with Maddox and Baxter. Perhaps it is not prejudice, but rather recognition that the legal definition of a person and our instinctive understanding of what a person is may not be reconcilable. I can't define a person, but I know one when I see one. Maddox argued, I think reasonably, that we would not have been arguing about Data's status if Data were a box on wheels or something to that effect. If the EMH did not exhibit personality, would Cass or anyone else feel empathy in response? Are Data and the EMH's apparent desire for personhood emergent properties of their complex mimicry of humanity, or is personhood an identity forced upon them by our inherently biased biological wetware, which cannot reconcile treating such near-human manifestations as mere machines? In 2022, questions of identity are in the zeitgeist. We cannot agree on a definition for man or woman, but corporate constructs are apparently people. All AI of a sort already exists and will soon be used, maybe already is being used, to control swarms of drones whose sole purpose is to kill biological people. Can an AI be tried for war crimes? How would one punish an AI? I don't have answers, but these questions haunt me because without some fundamental assumptions about the reality of the world around us, how can we engage with the abstract and fantastical boundlessness of the universe, which surely awaits us out there? How can we possibly go where no one has gone before when we cannot even agree on what one is? Best, KD, Houston, Texas. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I thought we were going to get an easy one for Wednesday.
We're just gonna just sort of let that one sit there. Yeah.
I mean, incredibly complex and incredibly, well thought out at so many different levels. I mean, we were talking like Queen to Queen's level 3 kind of 3D chess here.
Yeah.
I think that in one sense, we have to take a look at it from the beginnings of Starfleet and moving out into the mantra of where no one has gone before to seek out new life and new civilizations. So I think in one sense, looking at, say, Maddox and Baxter and their attitude towards what is or isn't quote unquote life, I think is something that at the center of this discussion is what bothers me the most, because these are Starfleet officers. These are officers that have been trained and have been exposed to a variety of different life forms, biological or otherwise. Mm-hmm. So why are they so hard-lined, especially Maddox, into categorizing and stating that if basically the three laws that Picard broke down in Measure of a Man, is he aware of his, his own existence, does he have a soul? Everyone knows that speech. So all that criteria met, why is it still difficult for, say, a Baxter to look at, say, the EMH and not understand that there are more parameters to life than just being biological?
Yeah.
So I find that at the fault of those that serve in Starfleet, because they are of a different mental a different mental understanding of having been exposed to far off worlds and new civilizations and alien life and things that aren't human.
Yeah.
I can understand the failings of our world. That's the reason why Star Trek is so alluring and so powerful, is because we're supposed to be able to reach a civilization and part of our own destiny that is beyond this limited thinking.
Yeah.
But why is it limited in that fantasy that we enjoy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, look, first of all, this whole question about how, ruling that corporations are people, or at least have the rights of people, Kishan, that is a damn mess. And I do not feel even remotely qualified to touch that one, but I feel like hopefully there are more reasonable voices that can prevail, that can at least put that into a special category. Maybe not anytime soon, but I would hope at some point in our development we can say, well, look, a corporation is an abstract entity made up of people who are sharing a particular goal, like making money by selling widgets or whatever. Therefore, we can have certain restrictions or differences in how that speech is typified compared to an individual. I don't think these are incredibly difficult distinctions to make, but politically, legally, we absolutely should. And yeah, look, I empathize, because that is just a holy mess and needs to get sorted out. Now, as far as looking at characters like Data and the EMH, and I would point to any number of moments in Star Trek where the crew has encountered an entity that is not a humanoid life form, whether it's the Horta or the crystalline entity and all of its nefarious dealings, or where we have just recently arrived in Voyager, where there's a photonic light life life signs coming from a photonic mass, that's determined to be a being, or a giant space amoeba, what have you. I think Star Trek overall has done a pretty good job of saying to the audience, hey, not all life is like you, and not all life worthy of some care and compassion and respect has to be exactly like you. It gets way trickier when that life talks back to you, like Data or the EMH. And I think what's so excellent about the way that both of those characters have been handled, and we're all talking about Measure of a Man, which we absolutely should, and I would recommend go back and listen to that episode of Mission Log about Measure of a Man, because I had to retrain how I even thought about that title, because we are not measuring Data. We are not determining if Data measures up to being a person or worthy of certain rights. The measurement is about us. The measurement is that our worthiness is about how we treat those things that are not like us. And in this particular case, Data. And I love how they've handled that on Voyager in pretty quick fashion, going to the first season, where, you have a problem with the EMH. I can't remember who it is that comes into Janeway's. It might have been Kess, or probably Kess. And Janeway's just like, yeah, unplug him. He's a machine. And it takes Kess to go like, wait a minute. Rethink this.
Cass being non-human.
Kess being non-human. Yeah.
Right.
Think through now. Let us see how we measure up to assessing this being, this life form. And there are all kinds of interesting nuances you can apply to it. You can say that Data and the EMH are simply products of all of their programming, which I would come right back and say, so are we. And if we want to apply something like the Turing test to it, well, at the point that you can't tell the difference, doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter if you say that they are conscious or not. You can't tell the difference, therefore you can't tell the difference. And at that point, the argument becomes academic. Is still going to flip it right back around to the observer and say, okay, now how will you treat this being, this entity, this life form? That is really the most important and most interesting question. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think Star Trek does a pretty good job at that. I wish that we in the real world would live up to that a little bit better ourselves, but maybe that's why we need, going back to a theme here from an earlier email in the week, maybe that's why we need to go back to the well. Maybe
Mm.
we need to go back to the well to tell these kinds of stories because we see it once and we kind of absorb it, intellectualize it, go, yeah, boy, we should be better about that. And then we don't. So then we need to come back and be told that story again to say, no, 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 no. No, even if it's something really not like you, or even if it's something that's really challenging, this is where you will be measured about how you treat those things that are not just as you wish them to be. And I'm not unaware of the very difficult, legal social conversations going on right now around gender and identity and the pushback that has gotten. And I would say that that is another place where we are falling short of our own measurement of what it is to be human.
I love how you frame that, John, because with every generation, you're going to have a new interpretation of the zeitgeist, the status quo of what is being discussed that's framing humanity. In the 60s, it was one way. In the 80s, it was a similar way, but now you have a new, younger group of people that are examining these ideas, from a different perspective. 20 years later, these are the same issues being examined by a completely new generation of younger people. So if these ideas can be reinforced from repeating these stories over and over and over again, perhaps the people that saw them originally are starting to actually understand
Yeah.
that the reason why they're still being talked about is because we haven't reconciled these differences yet, and maybe we should start doing so.
Keyshawn, I love it that you and so many of our other listeners, you just, write up these simple, easy,
Yeah.
what's
Right.
your favorite episode? Oh, yeah, yeah, no, no, no. We're going right for it. This is beautiful because this is exactly getting to the heart of what Mission Log is, which is having these very complex conversations. And this is one that can and will go on and on. So thank you for your thoughtfulness and your excellent insights here. Really appreciate it. If you would like to do what Keyshawn did here and send us your own comments, please do so. Missionlog@roddenberry.com or on Facebook and Twitter @missionlogpod. Then come back over here to YouTube, youtube.com/roddenberryprod. Subscribe to that playlist for Mission Log Engage. And remember, we may engage with your comments on the air.